has been a major focus of my life for the last 4 years. This time 4 years ago, in early 2010, I was in the process of getting divorced. And the way I brought in that year was really interesting. I wouldn't say that I'd want to go through it again. December 30th of 2009, I moved. My husband, my now former husband, and I had sold our house. We had separated. We had to sell the house. There wasn't another option, or at least we didn't think there was another option at the time. I moved into a house I was renting, and I spent New Year's Eve alone. My daughter was with her dad, unpacking the kitchen. Wow. I was scared. I was relieved. I had been unhappy in that marriage for years, and it was a slow sinking ship. And finally, there were some events that occurred in the summer of 2009 that really, you know what, hit the fan. And it was done. And so as I stood in the kitchen unpacking, I did buy myself a bottle of champagne. And there was, in that house, there was a jacuzzi tub. That was one of the redeeming qualities of that house I rented. And I said, you know, I'm going to start the new year off right. I'm going to, you know, treat myself. I'm going to take a really nice bath and drink some champagne, you know, after I do some of this unpacking. And as I got ready to take the bath, I took my rings off. And I was like, oh my gosh, 15 years. That's a big what now, big what now. And you can tell it still, you know, affects me very emotionally. Although I do have to say that I'm very happy not to be married to him anymore. And every time I get off the phone with him, thank you, Kathleen, I usually say something like this. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So it's a good thing. It's all good. So what now? So I began 2010 with really, what now? What next? What am I going to do? I hadn't really been working. I'd been working in network marketing, which was a big rift in our marriage. And so I was like, well, I've got to start earning money, you know, really earning money. What am I going to do? So I went back and started doing what I knew, and that was back in medical sales. I had a history in pharmaceutical sales. I did not go back into pharma because at the time, everyone was downsizing. Here I was, 50 years old. Who was going to hire a 50-year-old who had been out of the industry for 8 years? You know, yeah, about 6 years. So I started doing some work, you know, commission only with some startups, different labs, different things. Well, I had not one, but 2 companies, right when I was ramping up, starting to build relationships, starting to get some clients, close the doors. Twice in like a year and a half. And I was like, okay, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And I knew it. I knew it in my heart. I went back to it because it was what I knew. I was good at it. I didn't even really like calling on doctors. After calling on doctors for over 11 years, I was kind of tired of dealing with them, quite frankly. But I went back to it out of fear because that's all I knew. And I was too scared to try and do anything different. And I really settled in a lot of ways. I was working part-time and blah, 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 blah. So after about a year and a half, 2 years of everything I tried not working, I said, you know, I got to figure this out. I know I'm being called to do something greater. I'm not quite sure what it is. So I had been introduced to the passion test, which we'll go through in a little while. I had been introduced to that in about 2008. I was still married. I got on like a teleseminar with Chris and Janet Atwood, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. This is something that I would like to do. And I always tucked it in the back. Oh, someday, someday, someday. So finally, I thought, it might be a good idea to get the book and read it. So I did that. And then, I took myself through the process. And I started realizing and getting clearer that, I have this calling. I've always wanted to serve. I've always wanted to help people. When I got into pharmaceutical sales, it was because I wanted to help people. And I knew that I was supposed to do that in a greater way. So in October of 2012, the Passion Test certification was going to be in Atlantic City. And I decided, you know what, I got to do this. I have to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I'm going to do it. And I did. And that 4 days were 4 of the most transformative days that I've ever experienced. It was 4 days of incredible learning and also complete unconditional love and support. It was just amazing. So that is what's brought me to where I am now, because I am much clearer as to what my purpose is. And even though I still have challenges, like we all do, I'm not so afraid to move forward anymore. I know that there's support out there. And it's, from the divine, and the right people just seem to show up, and it all starts to evolve. So, one of the things that I feel very passionate about helping people is with helping them move through their fear. Because I know fear intimately, very well. And not so much fear like being anxious fear, but the kind of fear that keeps you stuck. The kind of fear that tells you, well, who do you think you are to do this? Or, you're not good enough to do that. Or, well, what are other people going to think? Or when you have people in your life, like family members, who think their vision of your life should be one thing, and in your heart, your vision for your life is something else, and they do this. Can anyone relate to this?
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody have like perfect supportive families that support everything they do? Am I the only one with a dysfunctional family? So when we talk about fear, one of the commonly used acronyms for fear is false experiences appearing real. And I have a different acronym for fear. And that is feelings experienced as resistance. Because when we are in a state of fear, we are in a place of contraction. We're resisting something. We're resisting either change, or we're resisting what is. What is? We're not accepting the moment. What is? And for me, the false experiences appearing real, which I think is a great acronym. Sometimes our fear, what appears, is really challenging and awful. I've gone through times after the divorce where, I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. That's not a false experience. That feels pretty damn real when you don't know where the money's going to come from. So that's why I say, for me, fear is feelings experienced as resistance. Because when we're in that feeling of fear, if we can shift it to a place of acceptance, to a place of, find the blessings in the current situation, where we can open up and say, okay, maybe I'm not real happy with this current situation, and yet I'm going to be open to it. I'm going to be open to what is. I'm going to be open to finding the lesson and the blessing, knowing that the divine is always for me. Universe is always for me. Source is always for me. It's never, ever, ever against me. So this is showing up for a reason, and it's here to help me. My fear is here to help me. And when we can look through that, or look through an area where we're feeling stuck, where we know we want to move forward, and yet we see ourselves procrastinating or self-sabotaging, and you keep coming back and saying, why am I do that? And then all the self-judgment comes in. You know, when we can just stop and say, let me bless what is. Let me bless what is. I have a friend, Anna. She's in Atlanta. I actually haven't met her yet. I can't wait to meet her. But we did a contest online. That's how we met. And she has a radio show. It's called Universal Energy Radio. You can check it out. It's a blog radio. And Anna, one of her shows is called Bless the Mess. And I love that. Bless the mess. So when we can begin to bless the mess, we can let go of the fear. And today, Ellen, you know, it was the one, was it a song where she was talking, and she was talking about when we're in a state of love, we can't be in fear.
There's no fear.
There is no fear. And that was, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so perfect. When we are in a state of love, we can't be in fear. And when we have these situations come up that bring anxiety or bring fear or where we feel stuck, and we can go to the love and say, there's a blessing in this for me. It takes its power away, and it gives you your power back, your sense of personal power back. So when we go to love, and we can shift that, and we start loving and blessing whatever is showing up in our lives, it opens us up to greater possibilities and greater flow. And I also have an acronym for love, too. And that is loving ourselves, valuing everything. Loving ourselves and valuing. So valuing ourselves, valuing everyone, valuing what's showing up, and really being in a state of gratitude. And I have found for myself, the more that I can be in a place of gratitude, the better things are. I mean, not only do I feel more peaceful and calm with no matter what is going on around me, better and better things start showing up because I'm open to it. I'm open to the possibilities. All right, so...
I feel better already.
What?
I feel better already.
Oh, good. Good. So as we talk about what's now, what's next, there's a couple things we're going to be doing today. When I talk, I like for things to be very interactive, because I personally don't think someone wants to hear me talk for 2 hours. So we're going to do a couple of exercises today. So let me just